Few people know pressure like today's guest, a man who's made a career out of thriving when stakes are high.
Hits this one deep in the air to left field. That ball is gone! Aaron Hicks delivers!
From first-round draft pick to patrolling center field under the bright lights of Yankee Stadium, Aaron Hicks has seen it all. The highs, the injuries, the comebacks, and the criticism. He's known for his cannon of an arm, highlight reel catches, and his ability to deliver in big moments.
He made the play!
But behind the stats and SportsCenter clips is a story of resilience and rising above the noise. So how does a player stay grounded when the pressure is sky high? How do you silence the doubters and yourself when things get tough? I'm former LPGA Tour player Cheyenne Woods, and you're listening to Real Game. Real Pressure with Aaron Hicks. Aaron Hicks, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming to chat with me today.
Of course.
I'm excited to have this conversation today because obviously this show is about what separates the good athletes from the great athletes, trying to break down what that elite mental side of sports is. And you being an 11-season MLB veteran speaks volumes. That is something that not a lot of people are ever able to do. I think every kid who grows up playing baseball has the dreams of doing what you did, but the reality is only 0.05% of players actually make it to an MLB field. So when you hear 11 seasons and playing for some of the biggest teams in the sport, what do those 11 years mean to you?
It means everything. For me, it just means a lot of hard work, dedication, dedicated to my craft, um, and trying to stay as healthy as possible. I mean, that's one of the hardest things about playing in Major League Baseball is that there's a lot of games, and being healthy is key, and also being productive. Being an asset to a team um, is extremely important, as far as, producing and also being reliable.
And you mentioned the length of a season, the toll that it takes on your body, and those are all things we're going to talk about today. We actually did some research on your career. So I want you to see this graph of Aaron Hicks' career through baseball from the beginning, drafted in '08, called up in 2013, where you made your major league debut, playing for 4 different teams. What stands out to you when you do look at this graph that is charting your 11 seasons?
A lot of up and down, that's for sure. Yeah, a lot of ups and downs, but that just comes with, just playing baseball. I mean, we literally play a sport that you fail majority of the time, and it is definitely tough.
You really have to have what I think is a certain mindset to get through that. The longevity of your career, in addition to the longevity of a season, in the individual season, what type of mindset did you have to adjust for while you were playing in that environment?
Mm. I mean, you definitely gotta have grit, you know. You definitely have to be level-minded for sure, especially what you fell in so much that if you have peaks and valleys as a person, then it's gonna be a lot harder. You got to be focused on the longevity of a career and a season.
Late 2013, early 2014, there was a dip in your performance. I know you were called up in 2013. Can you try to talk us through that time period? And, playing in the major leagues was new to you coming from the minors. And what was that dip? And do you remember what you were feeling in that moment?
Yeah, I mean that double A is a lot easier than the major leagues. Or yeah, there's just so many different avenues that you have to go through as a hitter. Understanding pitch sequences, understanding how am I able to adjust on the fly. Um, the It's definitely a learning curve. When you first get into the big leagues. You have to you're full of confidence when you get there, and then you get smacked in the face. So I think that it is definitely humbling, but that's just a part of the sport.
And you mentioned baseball is a sport where you do fail a majority of the time. I mean, 75% of the time you're failing. And if you're succeeding 70% of the time, you're probably a Hall of Famer. And there's a very fine margin of failure that you just deal with. And that's something you have to accept. Baseball is a game of confidence, but confidence can be so fragile when you're in that environment of failure. How are you able to keep that confidence as you are going through these times of perceived failure, maybe not perceived failure? But the natural flow of a game of baseball where you're not hitting every ball and you go through stretches that are a normal part of the game of failing.
It comes down to being able to enjoy the process. You hear people talk about it all the time, enjoying the process because there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. You're going to have, a month or two where you're just raking and, the game is coming to you relatively easy. And then you're going to have, 30 at bats where you just have no idea what you're doing. And you go up there with confidence, and by the time the at bat's over, you're leaving, defeated. So it's just tough, because you could do everything right and still get out. And I think that's probably the most frustrating part about baseball is that, we could hit a ball as hard as we can and still get out. So it's it's tough. It's tough for sure.
Did your relationship with failure change throughout your career, or was that just a consistent mindset you always had from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, it always changes, especially in different levels, struggle in the minor leagues and then come back the next year, try to do better. Try to constantly get better day by day, but also understanding how it works for you. What works for you may not work for somebody else. So, um, getting information that is going to help you succeed, but drown out the stuff that's not is definitely hard, especially through the minor leagues. Um, and then just being able to um, adjust is the most important part.
And we probably have a lot of young athletes or even parents that are watching this. What advice would you give to up and coming athletes when it comes to failure?
Be open to expressing, your feelings towards how you feel, especially when it comes down to failing, because I mean, I feel like the more you let it out, the better it is. You'll be able to understand exactly what's making you frustrated, and I think talking to the right person might turn that around for you.
Is that something you had, and how important is that for
Yeah.
athletes?
No, I definitely had it for sure. I had a strong support system that was there for me from the start to the end. And it's extremely important when it comes down to hard times. When you're on your way home, if you're able to talk to somebody, you can, by the time you get home, you could be in a level mindset, after just leaving defeated.
Definitely key topics for you when you were starting out, and then from there, building off of that to a more consistent career in the MLB where you were playing in New York from 2017 to 19. You had a stint of super, super consistent play, at least it was showing statistically. How were you feeling in those years? Or when you're thinking about your career, do those years stand out at all?
Yeah, I think 15 is probably the start of it where I felt like I belonged. I felt very comfortable being on the field. I felt that I was prepared to play baseball every single day. That's probably where it started. 17 is kind of where I started to kind of tap into a part of my game that I never really used that much. I started to try to hit for more power and get on base a lot more. So I think that the changes that I was able to make as soon as I got to New York were huge, especially for my career. Being able to have Marcus Timms there to kind of navigate me through um, things I need to do on a day-to-day basis definitely helped me out a lot. And also playing on a good team, be able to play with good players definitely um, got me prepared for every single game because if I felt like somebody was working harder than I was, then I try to match their energy. So I think as soon as I got traded over to New York, I definitely changed the way I thought about baseball.
Playing in New York for the Yankees, wearing the pinstripes is something that most baseball players dream of, and not many are able to do. When you walk into that clubhouse and you're surrounded by Hall of Famers, you're surrounded by championships, how does that shift your mindset? And how does that change how you do play if it does?
You're either there to win or you're going to be shipped out relatively soon. So, playing with good players definitely helps you out because it makes you more aware of yourself and also the importance of winning. I felt like when I was in Minnesota, I was still trying to grasp playing in the big leagues. And then by the time I got to New York in 16, the first thing I was told by CC is that we win here and we hit bombs. So, that was my welcome to New York type of, statement that stuck with me, that we're here to win. And, that's the bottom line.
Being in that environment can sometimes feel like a lot of pressure, I would imagine, for people. So how do you differentiate feeling the pressure and the either being a negative or it then elevating your game?
For me, if I played, to the best of my abilities, that's about all I can do. Day-to-day basis, if I go out and have a good game, I enjoy the good game. If I have a bad game, try to figure out what happened. But the pressure of playing in New York is, you're there to win, you're there to help your team win, and when you're not doing it, it doesn't feel good. It comes down to a point where it's all about consistency and being somebody that's dependable.
What does that feel like when you're locked in?
You're calm. When a baseball player is going well, he's not thinking about anything. And when a baseball player is going bad, he's thinking about everything. So it just comes down to, being confident within yourself is how guys get locked in and tapped into start to have amazing games.
How do you stay in the moment of not being sucked into those failure moments, but always staying ready for things to turn around?
Because it can happen at any moment. I don't know how many times I've had a swing and bunt, and for some reason, right after that, I just started to feel better. And it's not like I hit the ball hard. It was just perfect placement with luck. That just gave me confidence.
And you mentioned when things are going well, you're not thinking about anything. The ball's moving slow, you're calm, clear-minded. I wanna show you a moment, in your career, a play that has been a highlight on every highlight reel of Aaron Hicks. Um, but I think it's just such a key play and a key moment that I wanna hear you walk us through it. I'll let you look at it first, and then we'll kinda walk through the play. This is a catch.
The 2-1. Kepler lines that in the air to left center. Hicks on the run. Dives. And he
Yeah,
made the catch. He made the play. Oh my
yeah, that's
goodness.
dope.
What a catch from Aaron Hicks.
So that was a catch from Aaron against the Minnesota Twins to end the game. Do you remember that moment? Does it feel like can you relive that with us?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I know Kepler pretty well. I used to literally watch him walk across the street from school and join us on the field. So I know that kid pretty well. And also, I think for me, knowing your opponent is big. So during that process, I just felt like the way Green was pitching right there that he wasn't going to be able to turn around his fastball. So I remember literally probably two pitches before that, I adjusted the outfield to go a little bit more to the opposite field, and like, it just was a gut feeling, and then, just wanted to make sure that I had a good first step, good first jump, and, was able to make a pretty good catch right there and end the game.
When it comes to performing in a pressure situation like that, is that something that you can train for?
Can you train for it? Oh, man, I mean, I feel like most people train for it a lot when they're younger. You know, you think of the bases loaded type of event that, you're up, bases are loaded, 3-2 count, 2 outs, like it's something you dream of. And then you have to visualize it before it happens. You have to see yourself succeeding in that situation. Um, is basically how you prepare for it.
And I want to transition now to the end of that consistency stretch that we saw on the graph of 2019. Throughout your career, you've had to deal with multiple injuries from hamstring to low back, Tommy John, wrist, knees. How does an athlete manage that while still trying to stay ready to play, trying to believe in yourself, trying to be confident, and stay competitive?
It's definitely tough. Tommy John was definitely my first major injury that was to my arm, and it's one of the it's literally one of the most important parts of my game is being able to be on defense and control the running game with my arm strength. And once you kind of lose that, you kind of start second guessing if you're ever gonna throw that hard again, and it gets tough because all you want to do is, get healthy as fast as possible, but sometimes it doesn't go like you thought it would. I think for a solid 2 years, I was struggling with being able to throw the ball hard and throw the ball at multiple angles became tough. I felt like um I just was never going to get it back again. Being able to be free and fluid with my throwing motion, it was definitely tough, and then right after that, wrist surgery was another one that I feel like impacted my hitting quite a bit. Not being able to, turn my wrist completely and have the full mobility that I used to have before, felt like I was getting slower, especially with bat speed and that stuff, that type of thing. So, but you know, there's no point in thinking about that while you're competing. You're just trying to do the best you can to come back as strong as possible. And for me, it just didn't really go down that way.
Naturally, you're going to change as a player. How do you adjust with how your body's changing or how injuries might be affecting you, or even if the game is changing? In 10 years, I'm sure baseball has changed a bit. How do you manage that and being the individual player that you are, knowing who you are, but then also adjusting to the game and yourself?
When you are young, you don't think about anything, and but the moment you start getting, into your 30s, you start thinking about, different ways to make yourself more, faster, being able to be stronger, quicker, all these different type of things to keep you at the top of your game.
I feel like that's a part of sports that any athlete can relate to in terms of knowing who you are as a player, but also when you get to a point where you know you need to be better. I know for me as a golfer, there was a point on the LPGA tour where I struggled with knowing who I am as a player and sticking true to my game, but then also understanding that there's room for improvement. Did you have people to talk to about that? Was that something more internally? Did you rely on coaches?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it definitely came during that 2016 to 2019 stint, where I was constantly working on something to make me a better player. The one thing about sports in general is that the moment you're not evolving is the moment that your career is about to get ready to stop. So, um, it is a humbling experience, but you kind of know it when it happens.
I want to get into a really interesting part of the graph here from 2022 to 2023. There's a significant dip and rise in your career where I just think it's so interesting that there's such a quick turnaround. 2023 in New York was, tell me about that year.
2023 in New York, I think I was beginning to start to be kind of a bench player where it was kind of a position where I wasn't. comfortable with. It kind of made baseball a little bit harder because, being a switch hitter is tough because you need to be in the game consistently to where you're in tune with day to day at bats. There's no way to rep a day to day baseball game to have you succeed. So it kind of became tough because I felt like I was beginning to kind of get back to the player that I was, and I was never really having the opportunity to do that. Um, and with that became, a lot of failure, So I wanted to do better, but wasn't really able to kind of lock in and succeed.
Knowing yourself as a player, knowing the environment that you play best in, how does control play a role in performance when it comes especially to a team sport?
A lot. When you are a starter, you have more opportunities, right? To have good and bad games. Your leash is a lot longer. When you're a bench player, it's it kind of feels as if like you're important, but you're not that important, right? So if you have a bad game, it's kind of expected. If you have a bench player that goes out there and hits, 220, that's a relatively good year for a bench player, especially when they're not getting that many at bats and you're not having that many opportunities to really flourish, unless there's an injury, to a starter. Then you start to get into the game more, and then from then on, you're kind of expected to play better. So as a bench player, it's kind of just you know it's you try your best.
And there's only so much you can control. It's very easy to talk about the great moments of your career and all the highlights, and that's fun to talk about. But what I love talking about to athletes is the difficult times. So I do want to just show you one play. It's not a highlight.
There. This one down the left side toward the corner. Is it going to be fair? It is a fair
Oh my
ball
goodness.
off the glove of Hicks and into the corner. Choi has scored. Yandy Diaz scores. Into second base goes Franco.
Hmm.
Right there. And watch, he's more upset he didn't.
That was obviously in New York. When you see that, what are some emotions that you're feeling?
Oh man, horrible. Feel horrible. Primarily because we ended up losing that game, I think, and for me as a player, it kind of just happened so fast. He didn't really hit it that well down the left field line, and it had just enough flair to kind of go a little bit closer to the wall than expected. And then as I was running after it, I felt like I had a pretty good beat on it. And so as soon as I went out to try to catch it, it just literally went right off the tip of my glove. And I felt like it was going to be foul and it was going to be a tough play because I was going to be approaching the wall really fast. And, I missed it, in a ball that I would catch 99% of the time. In my head, I'm automatically assuming that it's a foul ball until I look up and seeing guys running still. And the umpire saying that it was fair. And by then, it's just straight panic mode, pick up the ball, throw it in. And um, so it, it, it just becomes tough, because you're out there to try to make a play and you don't. And then, I feel bad about not making the play. And then now I'm letting 2 runs come in that, you know, are huge. They're big parts of the game that make it to the point where, you can't do anything to bring it back. After that play, I got taken out of the game. And I remember Boone said that he was trying to protect me. But when it comes down to playing a game, I'm there to protect myself. So, all this is happening. And, for me, it's like, I'm I'm in a downward spiral, because these events that would normally not happen are starting to happen. So I think for me, it's like I was pissed when I got taken out of the game because like you're not giving me the ability to fight back. You're not giving me the ability or the chance to, redeem myself in a game that is not going well for me currently at the moment. Because I could have came up um, in that bat later and hit a 3-run homer, and all of a sudden, you know, things happen here, things happen there. We win the ball game, and I'm able to, redeem myself. But if you take somebody out of the game that you feel like you're protecting, you're not protecting them. I feel like you're giving other people the avenue to, um, you know, say you had a bad game without giving you a chance to redeem yourself.
When you're in that moment, everything is happening so fast. Are there tools that you learned throughout your career to deal with those fast moments to try to slow things down or to come back from a moment like that for the next play?
I feel like you can't really prepare for the fast moments. I feel like fast moments just happen every now and then. I feel like preparation is definitely a way to prevent it for sure. Visualizing different situations that could happen before the play, but there's no way to kind of prevent that. I mean, I feel like it's going to happen to every athlete to where, they're going to have a fast moment, and then in a blink of an eye, all of a sudden, like the worst has just happened.
When it comes to being on a team, how important are those relationships? You have the great moments where you're playing for your team and you celebrate together, but then you also have the difficult moments. How important is it to have strong relationships within the team to get through both the highs and the lows?
When you have teammates that are there for you and that rock with you, it makes it extremely easy, because not only do you have support, off the field, you have support during the game too. I mean, somebody just, you know, give you a little pat on the back saying, yo, let's go or pick it up, or, having somebody that knows how you respond to things, is extremely important, and how to get you back on track.
From a golf perspective, obviously it's an individual sport,
Mhm.
and any team sport we play in, we always would tell our teammate the number one rule is you don't say sorry.
Mhm.
You play how you play, you're trying your best, but we don't ever say sorry to each other.
Mhm.
When it comes to you playing alongside with your teammates, how are you able to separate that feeling of whether it's a mistake you made or a teammate made a mistake? How are you able to separate those feelings of, somebody messed up?
I mean, it all comes down to knowing yourself. Um, if you feel like you went after it 100% to try to get this ball and it just didn't happen, like I feel like that was all I could do. You know what I mean? And you know, there might be some people that might feel different about it, um, but knowing in my heart that I tried everything to get this ball, there is no point in saying, my bad or whatever, unless you completely mess up a play.
Hearing your response to a situation like that, to me, sounds like that is the differentiator between the average athlete and the elite athlete. Because in most situations, a person would wanna run and hide when they're failing or they're struggling. Whereas an elite competitive athlete who is there to do their job and be the best that they can be, wants to walk through the fire. They want to face every challenge and have that opportunity to have that redemption moment. And we mentioned earlier the key to that confidence and that consistency is knowing that in any moment things can change. Where do you think that comes from?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've kind of always been like that in kind of whatever I do. Um, because if you really know me, you know me that I'm pretty much competitive in everything I'm everything that I'm doing. Um, and I want to win. I don't know. I've kind of always been like that since a kid. I mean, I don't even let my kids win stuff. So, um, I don't know. I think it's just a fight that you develop over time, wanting to be the best and wanting to prove yourself to whoever's watching.
And you mentioned earlier on, the grit that it takes to play baseball,
Mm,
and I feel like that's exactly what that is for you. You love what you do.
mm,
You enjoy the challenge, and again, I really feel like that is the separator mentally. Everyone's good, right? But
mhm.
that was a separator for you. A moment like that, like, you truly wanted to stay in the fight. And transitioning now to that resurgence in the graph that we saw in Baltimore. That is again where we saw that fight in Aaron Hicks.
As soon as I went to Baltimore, I kind of felt like from day one that I was important. Um, I was somebody that they needed, and I felt like my role was to come and help us win. Which is kind of not what I felt like when I was in New York. Um, because it felt like I was being um like put in a certain position that I felt like I shouldn't have been in, right? So as soon as I went to Baltimore, from day one, they were like, "Yo, you're gonna play center field, and you're gonna help us win. You know, we need you to help us get better, in every way possible. Just let us know ideas that you have to help us make better, or help us play better." So from then on, like I automatically felt like I was important, So I think I got there, man, I think they had a night game, and then I literally played the next day, right? And I'm in center field. I hadn't been in center field in, man, like a long time, and I was there. Um and I felt great. As soon as I got there, they were like, "Yo, you're gonna play every single day, so, strap up and get ready for it." And that was all I needed to hear. Just being filled with confidence was everything.
It's important to have the external validation and external confidence kind of fed into you as well. When it comes to trainers, coaching staff, even outside of the team, how was your circle affecting you in this new chapter? How are they playing a role in your life?
A lot. I feel like, because all the hard work that we did, say, all the hard work I did in the off season was definitely starting to um, show its true form. Being able to have a support system that was with me from when I was grinding to with me to where now that I'm succeeding, we're extremely consistent. Always there for me, and that's what I needed in that time.
When you look back at your 11 seasons, what qualities do you think within yourself are what carried you to be as successful as you were?
I just always wanted to grind. I wanted to be somebody that could play 160 something games. I think is It's hard. I never done it, but it was something I always wanted to do. I always wanted to be in the lineup every single day. There's something about that guy, um, that can do that, that could be there and that could grind, every single day, and he's gonna be in the lineup that changes your perspective of him.
If you were to go back and talk to 2008 version of Aaron Hicks when you were drafted, what would you tell him?
Oh, that's um, I would tell him to um, enjoy the game of baseball. I feel like when you're in the minor leagues, it goes by fast. I feel like when your career goes by fast. Um, but to enjoy just playing the game that you love to do is important because it's easy to get sucked into this is my job type of feeling. But when you love what you do, it's easy. playing the game of baseball is easy because you genuinely love to do it.
And from that 2008 version of Aaron Hicks, you played under the brightest lights. You played at the highest level. You went through some really difficult injuries. You've had some key moments in your career that are record breaking. And I think that is a testament to your love of the game. As we mentioned, a lot of those difficult moments, people would want to give up. People would let that affect their performance. But that fire in you always kept you going, and that is what elite athletes do. Consistency, passion, resilience. You've done all of that in your career. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's really nice to get inside the mind of one of the most elite athletes in sports.
Yeah.
Well, you are in baseball,
uh,
0.05% of
I am.
players,
Yes,
okay?
yes, I am a part of the yes, 100%. I definitely enjoyed it for sure.
Thank you for watching. We want you to be a part of the show. Every other week, we release special episodes built around what you're curious about and exploring in real time. Leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/real game with your questions related to the show or topics you'd like us to dive into. And you might hear yourself on an episode. Connect with us on Instagram at Cheyenne_Woods. And if you're enjoying these conversations, share the podcast with someone else. We're here to grow together.